When Ford released the Bronco Sport, it reminded me a lot of the Jeep Patriot because they were both retro-inspired, practical, affordable SUVs. But while Jeep nailed the exterior styling and honestly not a lot else with the Patriot, Ford has nailed just about everything with the Bronco Sport, and it's getting better for 2025. Today we're taking a look at the 2024. I have Nick with me here, and we're going to decide, should you buy a 2024 or should you wait for the 2025? So Nick, what do we have here today?
This is the freewheeling trim. This is a more retro styled vibe versus the other trims. And again, it looks just like a mini Bronco, but these retro vibes might not be for everybody. What do you think?
Yeah, I am old enough to remember people painting their Broncos like this. I don't know if they came from the factory like this when I was a kid, but I knew people with this look. And I kind of am okay with it, except for the wheels.
Yeah, those are kind of hideous, aren't they?
We'll take a look at those in just a second. But what I love about the Bronco Sport is its boxiness and the fact that it's basically just baby Bronco style.
Yeah, the headlights are very similar to what you're going to find on the bigger Bronco. The grill's somewhat similar, and they're going to be even more similar in 2025 with some of the updates coming to the trims.
And that's probably the first thing you guys should know, is that for 2025, we're going to be getting more off-road capability, we're going to be getting the Sasquatch trim, and we get some subtle changes around for greater usability as well, like the really cool load tie-down points in the front fender area. They're going to have a load capacity, I think it's like 150 pounds, so you can put your canoe on and strap it down. You're also going to get skid plates and recovery hooks up front.
Interesting. So they actually have tie downs on the fender well?
On the fender, yeah. They pop out of this area. We'll show you again on the side in a bit.
So it's similar to, I just had a big Bronco at home,
Yeah.
And they have the tie downs up on the sight lines up top.
Yeah, and so those are going to be over there.
Yeah, that's nice. They're integrating that into the menu too.
So direct competitors to this logically would be Subaru Crosstrek, Jeep Compass. Would you consider something like an HRV or a Kona against this? I think they're not off-roady enough.
No, not even for the base trims of the Bronco Sport. I mean, you get exponentially more off-road capability than either of those options you just listed. So if you are looking for something like finding a vehicle for adventure, yes, you could use those options, but this might be more suited for that type of lifestyle.
Yeah, and one of the big differences, of course, is that this has standard all-wheel drive, and not every option in the subcompact crossover segment has all-wheel drive standard.
Yep, subcompact, 172.7 inches long.
And I know if you're watching this outside the US, you're thinking, that is not subcompact. Obviously, definitions mean nothing anymore because the Honda HR-V is a whopping 7 inches longer than this. I think it's the boxiness that confuses people.
Yeah, it looks bigger from afar, but once you get up close to it, you realize that it is a pretty stubby little vehicle. When you compare it to other vehicles in this category,
or it's the related Ford Escape, which is 8 inches longer than this, and a Maverick, which has the same boxy vibe, a whopping 30 inches longer.
Incredible. I can't even think about another 30 inches, but you do have the bed, so the bed really adds a lot,
That's
even though
the big
it is
difference.
a short bed.
But what makes the Bronco Sport practical is its boxiness, and check out how high the roof is. We have decent ground clearance, but we also have a really high roof. And what do you think of this kink? This gives me so much Land Rover.
Yeah, for sure. And does it give you more room on the inside?
It does. Yeah, okay, so we'll take a look at that inside. Like the roof line actually the ceiling follows the roof line, whereas so many new SUVs out there are going for a very aero look where it drops at that point. This actually goes the opposite direction.
Now, if it didn't have these roof rails, I think it'd look pretty goofy. But with the roof rails, it evens it out nicely, so it almost seems just almost graphic-like, because this is really the body line almost.
And then check this out. The glass opens separately from the hatch. Now, I don't know about you, Nick, but this is one of the features that I really miss in SUVs because it used to be so common and now it's really not. And this is the only one in the segment that offers the separate glass.
It's a little bit of a lost art. Sometimes I don't find it super useful, but when you do find a use for it, you're like, this is the best thing ever. But without having it being a commonplace in this segment, it is a little bit of a lost art.
It makes this so much more practical because if, like me, you find yourself going to Home Depot and grabbing something that you probably should use a bigger vehicle to get home.
Alex is the best at
this. You can just have your 2x4 or whatever it is, a ladder. I've done a lot of lumber in my Grand Cherokee, which has a separate glass because it's an old one.
Yeah.
And that's why the window seal is a little battered. That's something to keep in mind, but still very practical. Now, what do you think about the rear end design? I think that they matched enough regular Bronco, but obviously they didn't give us a soft top.
Yeah, color scheme is a big thing on this trim specifically. The white with the red, with the gray vinyl underneath, and the white paint, it's a little much for me.
I'm okay with that part.
I'm okay with that, but it being on the gray,
yeah,
I don't really think that's necessary because the red would have been popped off, contrasting against the white. But
the yellow to goldenrod on the sides, that's more of my thing. We do have one exhaust tip for every 1.5 cylinders, though.
That's a good point. Dual tip exhaust tucked underneath that rear bumper.
And a 2-inch receiver. Like, that's something that we don't find in too many options out there, and you can tow up to 2,200 pounds when properly equipped.
When you're talking properly equipped, you are talking about that optional 2-liter turbo that produces 250 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque for 2024. Next year, we do lose power with that 2-liter turbo, going down to 238, a loss of 12 horsepower.
Yep, but we are here to talk about this engine, the standard 1.5-liter turbo, because this is the one most people are going to shop for, and that 2-liter turbo is only available in the most expensive trims. This engine does lose a little bit of horsepower for 2025, but not as much. It goes from 181 horsepower and 190 pound-feet of torque down to 180 horsepower. So you just lose 1 pony there. We still get the same 8-speed automatic transmission in both engines, and that continues for 2025. Towing capacity on this model comes in at 2,000 pounds, and according to the EPA, you'll average 26 miles per gallon combined and 29 on the highway. When it comes to front seat comfort, if I could ask for one change, it would be a seat bottom cushion that adjusts separately for tilt, because it does change, the tilt of it does change, but only when you're moving the seat up and down. There is a ton of headroom in here, however. I could have this seat crazy high up and still have inches and inches of headroom. In fact, even at its highest seat position here, I have more headroom than you'd find in an HRV or a Kona. But let's see how Nick fits, because he's a little bit taller than I am. What do you think about that?
Oh, wow, that's high up. But
your head's not touching the ceiling.
No, not even close. There's still 2 to 3 inches above my head. Is that all the way up?
That's all the way up.
Wow. That's impressive. I feel like I'm driving with my knees.
I know, it's kind of like driving an old minivan.
Yeah, when it's down flat. It's like a bus. Yeah, there's a lot of adjustment here in terms of height. That's impressive.
That's the real benefit to the boxy design here. I mean, you can have your seat crazy upright. I have like 6 inches of headroom back here.
It's that bump up too.
Yeah, it's that huge bump up. And, maybe about 1.5 to 2 inches of legroom if I'm honest there. You could move your seat up a bit more if you wanted to, right?
Yeah, for sure. I have plenty of space so I'm not eating the dashboard.
And over here, this seat's all the way back in its tracks, and my knees, maybe there's about 1/2 inch of room. This is the kind of vehicle where you could much more easily put rear-facing child seats behind taller drivers if those taller drivers are willing to sit more upright and a little bit further forward, which is possible just given the ceiling height that we find in here. Now, in the back, we have a fold-down armrest with cup holders. We have rear seat air vents, a feature that for some reason a lot of manufacturers are deleting in their less expensive vehicles. And we get 60/40 folding rear seats. Thanks to the boxy design, not only do we have legroom that's actually pretty similar to the full-size Bronco, we have a reasonably sized cargo area as well. 32.5 cubic feet in the base version of the Bronco Sport, 29.4 in this model, because what do we have under that cover, Nick?
We have a full-size spare. That is a huge selling point for me, especially in a compact.
And because this cargo area is so square, just check that out, there's lots of room above the luggage. You can fit a lot of roller luggage in here, not only due to the height, but the squareness, because this hatch, it's really vertical.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely has a lot of space on the inside, but having that spare tire underneath there while maintaining all that cargo space, this is like top of my list if I were to be looking in this market.
And this lid is why we get that difference in cargo area, because it has to be a little bit taller for that full-size spare. The regular model still has a spare. It's one of those temporary ones. Do you fit? I don't fit under here, because that's the one flaw.
I don't fit in the corners, but if I just go to the perfect center, I'd have to slouch.
Yeah, still have to slouch. So if you're taller than we are, keep in mind you're going to be hitting your head on these corners if you're not careful and duck down a little bit, or worse, on that latch right there in the middle.
That would suck. But I do like these lights up top that you can turn on with the button back here in the cargo area.
These are really cool, and you can direct them around. That's kind of nice. And dual handles to help you close the manual hatch. And probably the only thing to mention, of course, is that versus larger SUVs of yore, that is not the biggest slot, but again, we still have it. Now let's take a look around the interior. Keep in mind, again, we are in that freewheeling trim, so not the fully loaded model. But we do have some nice touches up here, like sunglasses holder. Do those sun visors move to the side, Nick? Let's check that out. Yep, I think so, right? Yeah,
Sure
well, they
does.
swing to the side. We have height adjustable shoulder belts over there as well. That definitely funky red to yellow stripe there on the seats. What do you think of the seat style? Oh, there's a pocket there.
I never noticed that before.
I didn't notice that either before. So I guess you'd stick your phone in there.
Yeah, let's see if it'll fit.
Does your phone fit?
Look at that.
Oh, look at that phone holder.
No idea why you'd use it. Well, second row definitely could use it.
Yeah, I suppose that would make sense back there in the second row. Now let's check out the door panels. Again, those red accents there.
I like this material they use. It's not a hard plastic. It has some soft touch feel. I like the pattern to it. It's not going to scratch.
That sort of Naugahyde thing.
Yeah, it feels premium. It feels much more premium than what you'd think would be in here.
And then harder plastics down there, obviously, at the bottom of the door. How about the glove compartment?
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow, that's
Very
actually,
deep.
yeah, you could definitely fit an 11-inch tablet computer in there. No
Multiple.
problem.
You could fit multiple in there.
Same sort of texture going on the dashboard. I am sorry, it's not a Naugahyde. I don't know what that is. That's sort of like a geometric thing.
It's like snakeskin.
Yeah. One big change, of course, obviously, here in the middle. Now, you're tech-focused-y with you love the Spotify. Would you go bigger screen?
I would wait for 2025 because it goes up to 13.2 inches as standard across the whole entire lineup.
And I do have to agree with you there. That is the one big change for me. We also get a full LCD instrument cluster rather than this teeny one we're going to take a look at in a bit. But the bigger deal for me, I think, would be that screen. Because this one, I think it looked small when the Bronco Sport launched, to be honest.
Just to give a reference, this is a 13 Pro Max, and it's like not that much bigger.
Yeah.
But a 13.2 is definitely going to be a huge improvement over what we have here.
That's a big deal. And then cool storage compartment there. Put my glasses in there at the moment. Engine start, stop button, red accents, yada yada. And then single zone climate control down there with heated seats. One wireless charging mat there. How do you find these rotary knobs? I don't mind the design theory, but I don't like it when they have park here.
Correct. I've gotten myself into some trouble with these rotary knobs because I actually found myself on a one-way. And
oh dear.
When I had to quickly turn around, I kept throwing it in park when I was trying to go to reverse, and people were looking at me like, "Dude, get out of the way!" I'm like, "I'm trying."
I'm
But yeah,
okay. I'm okay with the
tricky.
variation that we find. I'm spacing on which ones. I think it's some of the Korean vehicles where park is the button in the middle. And so then you can just click, reverse drive. That seems okay.
Yeah, for sure. There's different implementations that work a lot better than having park on the far left. Then a tiny little goat mode knob there.
You know, we've talked about farm animals here for a while, and I'm more team sheep than team goat, but I guess that wouldn't have made for fun modes. Let's check out those modes here. We have normal, we have eco, sport, slippery, and sand. I am surprised there's no general off-road mode because the sand mode, it's kind of really aggressive on the throttle, I thought.
Now, does the Badlands trim of the Bronco Sport get the off-road mode?
It will get more goat modes. I don't remember exactly what they are, but it gets more of them. Over here, though, while we're taking a look at the screen, full LCD in that other model versus teeny tiny little LCD there in the middle. These gauges also look a little bit old school. But for me, you know, if you had to choose, Nick, would you rather have a full LCD cluster or the bigger screen in the middle? I'd rather have the bigger screen in the middle.
Yeah, bigger screen in the middle all day, but if I can have both, that's the best of both worlds, so I'm going to take that.
And then the active safety stuff becomes standard on 2025, and here it's optional. So here we have the adaptive cruise control, aggressive lane centering, etc. On this side we have some infotainment controls, and then the controls for that teeny tiny little LCD. But the lane centering and the adaptive cruise control becomes standard for 2025.
That's a huge win.
Over here, let's take a look at the side of the door panel. Same as the other side, no memory seats over here for the driver. Nothing changes as far as the headlight controls. I know that's caused a lot of consternation in the comment section with some manufacturers deleting headlight controls, but nope, Ford still has those. And if you didn't notice it, no Ford logo in the steering wheel. Now going all the way back to the center, let's Vanna White that center console. That's not too bad.
No, I like there are charging ports in here, giving you a couple more. You have a USB A and C up front and here in the glove box, so doubling your charging capacity. And I like the stitching. Again, found the multiple color. I was just telling Alex off camera, you know what, it's kind of growing on me, and he asked, it might not be for the best thing. This is...
Is it growing on you like a fungus, or is it like a...
Yeah.
This has always intrigued me. Are you the kind of person that drinks Red Bull?
You know, if I do, perfect.
Yeah.
But I'm not a sponsored athlete, so I'm not paying $4 a can, and that's not going to be used much.
The other cup holders, though, those are really large, and I really like that. All right, let's get this out on the road and feel all 3 of those cylinders in action.
Wow. It does actually have a lot of pep for 3 cylinders.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, a pretty healthy amount of torque. 0 to 60 in this model, 8.2 seconds, which is notably slower than that 2.0T. What did you get last time you had it?
I think I got real high 6s, 6.9 to be exact, in that 2-liter turbo.
It's 1.2 seconds slower. It sounds logical.
Yeah, but down low, the throttle mapping must be a little bit different than the bigger 2-liter turbo, because this feels peppy down low. But
You get a lot of low-end torque, thankfully, out of this design. Takes a little while for that turbo to spool up, but yeah, you get a reasonable amount of pull. Also, bear in mind the competition, because pretty much everything else is a little on the slow side.
Yeah, the Crosstrek has that 2.5 liter, 8.1 seconds, and the Compass is a little bit quicker, as it does have a 2-liter turbo as well, and that's a 7.9.
And I was surprised by that, actually. I had to go back in my notes and double check what we got last time in the Compass, because the Compass's 2-liter turbo is significantly slower 0 to 60 than the Bronco's 2-liter turbo. Kind of disappointing there, actually.
Yeah, could it be transmission, possibly?
I'm guessing it's maybe a transmission issue there. Also, the Jeep engine in the Compass is significantly detuned versus other Jeeps with the 2-liter turbo, which, kind of sad. Well, we're talking about numbers. Braking distance in this model, 115 feet, which is pretty reasonable for this segment.
Yeah, that's not too bad. The bigger Bronco was over 120 feet when I tested it the other day, so it's a respectable number. That extra 10 to 15 feet, big difference when it comes to an emergency braking situation.
The big deal here, of course, with the Bronco Sport is that it drives small. So it does have this big bulky hood in front of us, which we didn't talk about earlier, but I should mention now. The shape of this, there are definitely situations, especially with the white paint, where you get a lot of glare as the driver, but I think that's part of why when you're driving the Bronco, or not driving, but when you sit in it, or when you look at it, sometimes it feels bigger than it is, because that hood makes it feel like I'm driving something big.
Also, the interior cabin space makes it feel big as well. It's just you're sitting lower to the ground, the roof is real high, you do have those bulges in that hood to make it look a little bit larger than it is. And I do have to say that once you mentioned that, I realized that I was noticing it. There is a ton of reflection. When you're looking down the road and it's darker than what the hood looks like, it is a little bit of like a overexposure for your eyes. And it's a little bit tough, but darker colors aren't going to be as bad. But that hood is well in your view.
But when it comes to the handling ability, it definitely drives smaller. So I mean, you can really tell this is not an overly big, overly heavy SUV. On the downside, we don't have overly on-road focused tires, and they're not wide. So when it comes to the actual handling score, I'm going to give this a B- to maybe a C+, depending on the model you're talking about. Something like a Kona or a Seltos, those are going to be more, more direct on-road. They're going to feel more engaging to drive on a winding road like this. But there's nothing wrong with the Bronco Sport at all. It's just that this segment is kind of weird in a way that there's so many on-road focused SUVs.
Yeah, and you kind of have to weigh what you're going to be wanting out of your vehicle, right? If you want some off-road capability, other all-wheel drive options can give you that capability without having bigger tires, chunkier tires, off-road suspension. But this is a well balance between those two things, and it's kind of that trade-off you find on road is having those bigger tires, or those skinnier, taller tires.
When it comes to ride quality, I think Ford did a reasonable job balancing the priorities for the Bronco Sport. I'm going to give the ride quality in this model a B. I think that there are some models that are smoother out on the road, and of course, I suspect that the Sasquatch with the different tires is probably going to have a slightly better ride as well. Remember that the Bronco Sport's a little bit more focused, of course, on off-road capability than on-road capability like we find in some of the competition. You recently had the 2-liter version of the Bronco Sport. How did you find the ride quality up in the Pacific Northwest?
I liked it. I think I have a little bit smoother roads where I'm at, but I agree with you. They find a good balance between ride quality on-road as well as off-road capability, and even find that in the bigger Bronco as well, which I just had very recently. So I'm familiar with the bigger Bronco, but even in this one, even on just gravel roads like we're on now, it isn't harsh. There isn't any reverberating noise coming through the cabin when you hit a harsh bump or a pothole, whatever it may be, and they found that good balance, so it gives respectable ride on road as well as on a gravel dirt road like we're on now.
Yeah, and of course it does have that fully independent suspension in the back, something we don't find in the Mazda CX-50 or the CX-30. Yeah, it does. I mean, especially off-road, if you're on a gravel road like this or a really bumpy trail, you're going to notice that you're going to get less chatter on the rear axle than you'll find in something with a semi or a non-independent rear.
And you were talking about that Sasquatch package that's going to be on the 25 model year. That's going to give you those chunkier tires, but it's going to have the Haas 3.0.
Yeah.
And that's going to be pretty interesting. It's a sensitive dampening shock, or position sensitive dampening shock. It's a mouthful. But yeah, they're going to have those on the Sasquatch packages, both on the Outer Banks and the Badlands. So if you are looking for something that gives you even more capability off-road and on-road, might have to wait till 25 to find
I'm super curious to see how that comes in. Now, before we get to comparisons, we should, I guess, finish the rest of the number set here. 72 decibels is what we measured in this cabin on the roads we test here. A perfect opportunity to talk about that because Nick's in the car, and I know in the comment section, lots of people love to complain about why are your numbers inconsistent? Well, you know, you're not here normally, and so we're not testing on the same road. That's the answer, guys.
Yep, exactly. And the roads out here aren't even that bad. It's just that the roads near me, the road I chose to test on, is smoother than what we find here. There's less potholes, there's less expansion joints, there's less bumps in the road, so it's just going to be a little bit different. And I explain every time that my numbers are going to be consistent. I use the same device, same method, and they're going to be consistent for Alex because he's on the same road. He's using the same device. He's using the same method. So just note, if you are watching this and you're one of those people that commented down below, maybe leave a comment again and be like, ah, gotcha, because it is hard to compare two different people.
Dude peeing on the side of the road in camera view. Hey.
Perfect.
It's the country. So fuel economy, 26 miles per gallon is the EPA average. So far, we've averaged 25.7, including a lot of idling. On our fuel economy test loop, I was shocked. Last time we averaged 29 miles per gallon. Part of me thought maybe that was a fluke. So we ran it on our test loop again. The weather's a little bit cooler this week than it was last time we Bronco sported. 30.5 is what we averaged on that test loop this time.
Bronco sported 30 miles per gallon. That's a
pretty
very
good.
solid number.
Yeah. Again,
just adding to the tally of things that this thing is good at. It's comfortable, off-road capability, on-road manners, and 30 miles per gallon combined.
And that's better than that Subaru Crosstrek that just pulled into view in that really cool blue paint. I do like that.
We did not pay that guy to do that.
No, but you know, good segue because Subaru, I would argue, has the toughest competitor to this. Compass is a little bit expensive. I feel to my core that maybe Cherokee was a better competitor to this, but Cherokee's dead for the moment. Even though Cherokee was theoretically one size up from the Bronco Sport. You know, would you Subaru or would you Bronco?
Oh,
well, Bronco Sport.
Bronco all day. Bronco Sport all day.
I have to agree.
Yeah, I like the use of a real transmission. I say real. I know people are going to squawk about that. A non-CVT transmission. I like the peppiness of this little platform.
People are going to squawk that you said CVT transmission. It's redundant.
What it's
continuously variable transmission.
CV transmission. How about
there we go. There we go. I agree. I'm not a CVT hater, but I prefer this. The big thing for me is the availability of that twin clutch rear axle unit, and the drive modes in this are much better at sending power to the rear than in the Crosstrek. That's, you know, if you want to use it as an off-road vehicle, that is a little bit more critical for me. I do think that the Subaru rides nicer though.
Yeah, and that's the platform it's on. You know, they've refined that so much to the point where it really is a great riding vehicle, but it might not offer as much capability off-road. Now they're very, very off-road capable, especially when you go for those off-road oriented trims. But I think out of the box, the Bronco Sport, is just a well-rounded piece of machinery, especially for those base trims.
And since we're talking about those 2025 comparisons, for 2025, Bronco Sport gets some seriously crazy skid plates, actually. I was really shocked how thick they are and how much of the underbody they cover, whereas in the Subaru Wilderness, they have a piece of plastic with a little sheet of stainless steel on it, a little tiny thin sheet of stainless steel, and there's a lot less protection for critical systems under the Crosstrek. This one gets bash plates, it gets you know, the metal bumper inserts in the front and in the rear, it gets 4 recovery hooks. Shockingly, very similar kinds of recovery hooks to what we find on the F-150, etc. So if you do want to take something to that next level, This is a semi-step above, maybe a full step above the Wilderness version, but that Sasquatch coming for 2025 is yet another step above this. So pretty decently elevated, even over the Compass as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it in person. You've seen it. You've made a video on it. I have not seen it in person. Now, are the front and rear bumpers, are those metal plated or are they fully metal bumpers? Or you said insert,
yeah,
so
they're interesting. So they're really thick gauge steel inserts in the plastic bumper. So instead of the modular bumper that we find in Bronco where you can remove the sections, it gets a similar style for Bronco Sport with these non-removable metal sections in there, but they're made out of the same gauge steel as the skid plates on the Bronco Raptor. Like the big Bronco Raptor,
oh, wow.
its skid plates are the same size, same thickness metal that we find on Bronco Sport, and the same size metal that we find on, thickness metal that we find in the bumpers. Really, really kind of an interesting twist. I'm not sure who's gonna be doing that with their baby Bronco, but if that's you, then Sasquatch.
Now, is there a major weight difference between a non-Sasquatch and the regular?
Yeah, it seems like it's a few hundred pounds, maybe like 200 pounds, I think.
Yeah, that's a lot of metal to be putting on there, but that's an awesome feature because that is just opening up the door for a lot more buyers if they are looking for a smaller off-road vehicle. And this thing, I'm just going to put it out there. This thing can pretty much do 99% of the stuff you want it to do. Now, if you're going to go out to, in the Pacific Northwest, we have a place called Elby. It is the most hardcore off-roading. You're not taking this out there. This is going to be more getting you to and from a camping spot and in the snow. It'll do all that. But hardcore off-roading, look at the bigger version of this.
This is take it to BLM places. Actually, there are a reasonable number of places like in Joshua Tree, I think in California where you could definitely do it. But this is not gonna do Moab. That's a different kind of thing.
Someone would do it or have done it.
Yeah, someone would do it, I'm sure.
Not recommended.
But yeah, I think that Ford really, and I think this is part of why it's hard to get a Bronco Sport. It's probably something we should also mention. Ford has been having difficulties building enough Bronco Sports, and that does not seem to be getting better for 2025. They've promised a pretty significant increase in production capability, but it may still be difficult to find the exact Bronco Sport you want unless they can really continue dialing that production number up. Now, instead of our usual pricing and comparison section, let's just talk about would you get this or would you get a 2025 and some of those key differences, because the 2025s are actually going to be on sale real soon right now, right?
Yeah, actually starting I think in November, so a couple weeks from now, those will be hitting some lots nearby, and I think it's worth waiting. I mean, it's not a big price difference. If it was a larger price gap, I would say maybe it's worth getting the 2024 and a little bit less tech as standard, but I mean, the pricing difference isn't that much.
And depending on how you want to look at it, the new one, the 2025, may be a better deal as well, because the base model, base to base, is only $200 more for 2025, but you get more equipment. But if you work your way up to the top end trims, then the difference is about $2,000 because you get a lot more on the very top end ones. You get the tow hooks, the extra, features in the fender there for tying things down, and then of course the bigger screens as well. This particular trim, it was what, $800 I think difference?
Yeah, it's about midway between $200 and $2,000, so I think it's about $800, $900 difference, and I think it's worth it. A lot of that technology and safety features that are going to be standard. I mean, if you were just to put it into a package, it's going to cost you $2,000 to get that package.
That's
so
true.
It's worthwhile for sure to just wait for the 2025 or just go to your lot and find one next month.
Now let's end on this question. How much would the dealer have to discount a 2024 for you to buy this over waiting for a 2025? What kind of deal would that need to be? I think I would need to get $2,000 off this, making that price difference almost $3,000.
Yeah, that's fair. That's about what I was thinking initially. So $3,000. Let us know what you think down in the comments. Would you take the 24 for a price cut, or are you just going to wait for the 25 and pay full price? And
keep in mind, if you want that Sasquatch trim, which I truly think is epic, like that, for me, big reason to get the Bronco Sport, because it's so unique in this segment. It elevates the amount of off-road capability significantly above what we find in the closest competitors, the Subaru and the Jeep. Those are probably the two closest direct competitors to this, but that new Sasquatch model with the locking rear differential capability, etc., it just takes things to a level we just don't find in the Subaru and the Jeep, and it looks pretty cool doing it.
For sure.
But you're gonna have to wait because that is not on sale till 2025 calendar year.
Correct. So we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for that one, but I think this is a great choice if you are looking in this segment.
And let us know what you think in the comment section. Do you have a 2025 on order? I don't know if we're going to get one. I know we had talked about this. I'd thought about maybe getting one as a long-term vehicle, but we ended up going in a slightly different direction. There's still time. But I don't know. Let us know. Should we try and get one of those really cool blue Sasquatches, or should we get something else? See y'all later.